It is race 3 of the match. Rossa Prada Pirelli against Emirates Team New Zealand. The scorecard sits at 1-1. And now the talk begins. We have a steady, light breeze today, Kenny and Nathan. How do you approach this?
Well, Rossa Prada Pirelli, we know, just changed to their light air main. Nathan, I wonder if they're regretting that right now, because this is actually a little breezier than I think anybody thought it was going to be, getting up close to a 10-knot average all the time. So this is great news for us. I wonder, though, if they made the wrong choice on their mainsail.
Yeah, well, it was about 25 minutes ago we were seeing some pictures of them dropping the main, changing it, and I guess they thought that the breeze wasn't going to come in, and now it's at the 10-knot wind range. Like, who are we to second guess these guys? They know the forecast. They've got all the observations out there. I bet you they've got the right gear on.
There is Francesco Bruni on the leeward side, and of course, Jimmy.
You know, one good sign is they're not having to get towed in. They think they can get up on their foils right now. They got 2 minutes to go. A lot of times, if it's real light, they actually get towed by their towboats up onto the foils.
So we'll get confirmation from race control surely if we have a good race to go. Looks good from where we sit.
This is the race committee. The wind sampling period is complete, and this race will start on schedule.
Rub your hands together. We got a race, baby. And it's race number 3 of the match, the 36th America's Cup. Te Rehotai, the defender, Emirates Team New Zealand against Rossa, the challenger.
Alarm clocks just went off all over Italy. Get out of bed and let's watch some sailboat races.
60 million race fans in Italy watching their team. And the confidence is huge. You go back to what Francesco Bruni said. He said after that last day of racing, they should have destroyed us. They didn't. There is bluster going on again.
Back on an even line.
Small pin bias, but very small.
Yeah.
Here's where they start analyzing the starting box, Nathan. They start analyzing both ends of the starting line. They have displays for everything, but the basics is which end is favored, just like any other boat in the world. Every once in a while, we got to bring ourselves back. Just because they're going 50 miles an hour doesn't mean that it isn't normal sailboat racing with wind shifts and bias to the starting line.
Yeah, exactly. We heard Francesco Bruni say that pin end's a little bit favoured. It's just a little bit better.
Huge crowds in today because Auckland, New Zealand has come back to what they call level 1. Life's back to normal and we are racing. The expected temperature today in degrees in the city of Sails was 25. It is a beautiful summer's day. The harbour is pristine. And Rossa Prada Pirelli can enter the start area at 2 minutes and 10 seconds to go from race start.
Good.
Almost changing
In comes Rossa on the port entry. You'll see on the right-hand side starboard at 2 minutes. In will come Emirates Team New Zealand, the defender.
That could really work here.
2, 1, and away you go.
Up on the breeze, boys.
90. Tight. You with it?
More.
Interesting that Rossa came in a little bit late, Nathan. Kiwis on time. All of a sudden, this is a much tighter little chase mode than we're used to seeing at this time during the starting sequence.
Yeah, Rossa going to get a choice of when to come back in. Let's just follow the chat on board here and see what they're planning to do.
Some spectators inside the spectator boundary. We have to postpone this race start.
Postponing it.
That's like having the wind being taken out of your sails just there and then. So you've just heard race committee. There are spectator boats inside the boundary. Race postponement.
I think the Kiwis would be kind of bummed out there, Nathan. They were in a nice little spot. You know, when you're coming into that area, you get to make the choice a little more easily if you're really up close to the boat in front of you, because there isn't that big gap and a larger time for anticipation. I always like that anyway.
Yeah, the goal of the starboard entry is to try and make that jibe as quick as they can and get on the heels of the port tack entry boat. Makes it puts a bit more pressure on the other boat to get their timing perfect.
Just confirmation. Race postponement. Race postponement. Spectator fleet inside the boundary of the race course. Did you like what you saw from Emirates Team New Zealand at that early of what you saw?
Yeah, I think Rossa maybe paid. Often we don't see a boat pay for being late coming into the starting box. But in that particular case, I think they did. I think they were 5 or 6 seseconds late coming in, and all of a sudden you got the you got the dog
the
right on your heels.
We have posted a new start time for 16:23. 8 minutes to go.
16:23, 4:23 local time. A little under 8 minutes now to race start, and race number 3 of the match in the 36th America's Cup. Okay, so now we have to reset everything. Mentally, when you've been geared up and ready to go for that race start, say they pull the rug out, it's okay, those fans will be happy to wait.
8 minutes to go, folks. Where would you rather live anywhere else in the world right now? You're back to
level one,
and man, we know how lucky we have it here in New Zealand, don't we?
I was walking around this viaduct area that you see is now packed with fans, and you know what? You could physically feel a sense of relief in Auckland City, which was under level 2 guidelines, that, you know what, let's get back and enjoy the America's Cup because it's all good here. And they're out on the water too and having a great time as well. But now we have to reset the whole mind game now. So if you're Emirates, does that work against you because you felt like you were coming in, or if you're Rossa, you're going, oh, okay, maybe we just got out of that one a little bit?
I don't know, Nathan. I don't know what you think, but I always wanted to get going. Let's go, let's go, let's go. As soon as the race was on, for me, there was a sense of kind of relaxation. It was the pre-start. You know, it was all that build-up before the start that there would be some tension for me. I just want to get going at this stage. So I'd say both teams were slightly disappointed, but these are also some hardened veterans, and they've been through this before.
Oh, they've been through this before, and often when the teams have been here doing all their practice races, they're so used to little delays and pushbacks and things like that. The one thing I have noticed is that the boats look like they've got slightly different jibs on, and maybe we could go to Shirley on the water right now. Can you spot the different size jibs, and is there any look at anyone changing jibs out there at the moment?
Yes. So the pre-start we just...
Nathan, no changing of jibs. Actually, the Italians are practicing their time and distance. I guess they didn't quite get that right, so they're practicing a couple of entries. And they do look a little bit different. I mean, it's something we can hopefully get a closer look at for you. We're just heading over there now.
Thanks, Shirley. That's Shirley Robertson, our double Olympic gold medalist. Best eyes on the water as we take a look at Emirates Team New Zealand, the defender. We're not too far away, 5 minutes 30 and counting towards start in race number 3. And we talk about starts. And let's go back to race 1. And because there was that attempted luff by Rossa Prada Pirelli on Emirates in race number 1 of the match.
Yeah, this was actually much closer to being a foul than we ever thought. We went back and analyzed this, and this is what we see. This is what the sailors see from boat to boat and what we see from the helicopter. Jimmy Spithill was falling behind quickly and tried to take a run at Emirates Team New Zealand. The boat to windward or Emirates Team New Zealand, they have to stay out of the way if there's a luff. We didn't even think about this, but there's Spithill saying, we're going to give a little luff here. He actually takes a right-hand turn, gives the other boat opportunity to keep clear, stay out of the way, which they do stay out of the way. And believe it or not, this was much, much closer than we thought it was going to be. So we're going to bring on what we call our keep clear border. And that's what the umpires are looking at. There's actually a diamond shape around the boats, and this is for their own safety because they got these sharp things sticking out all over the place. The keep clear border is what actually the umpires see. And, you know, it's really fascinating how close, Nathan, they actually came to a foul.
Let's follow it here closely, and it's obviously reasonable space right now. As New Zealand start to go past, you see the luff begin, and watch how close these diamonds get to each other.
And the outside edges of those diamonds, according to Chief Umpire Richard Slater, got about 1 meter from each other. And that's what the umpires are looking at. And here we go. They're going 30+ knots. So this happens pretty quickly. That's a meter difference between the outside of those boards. The borders are what matters. It's not the boats themselves.
So does that mean if those diamonds overlap each other, that would have been a penalty?
By a centimeter. And that's the accuracy of this whole system.
Wow, closer than we thought.
There you go. See, I taught you something today. This is great.
I learn something every day from you, Kenny. Don't you worry about that.
Oh, please.
It's usually bad.
So it begins 3 minutes and 26 seconds and counting towards the start of race number 3 in the Cup. Let's go up to Heli 1 and ask Paul Goodison, mainsail trimmer from American Magic. Has anything changed from what you can see up top, Paul, weather-wise?
No real big change from earlier. Again, it always looks like there's a little bit more wind at the top of the course. The marks are right in the middle of the motor heat channel, and then down in the bottom of the start box, still a little bit lighter. Be interesting to see if the Kiwis can get as close on the tail as the Italian boats they did that last start, because they were in a strong position there.
Thanks, Paul. Looking forward to your analysis throughout the 2 races today, 3 and 4 of the match. Here he is, Peter Burling, helmsman, the youngest ever to win the Emirates Cup back in Bermuda in 2017, has the weight of a nation on his shoulders. And there, of course, is his mate, flight controller Blair Tuke. The roles these guys play, they look like pilots, don't they? They really do look like fighter pilots, and they are in these AC-75 flying monohulls, which are, I've got to say, every time we look at them, Kenny, they are just beautiful to watch. So here we go. Port entry for Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, allowed in at 2 minutes and 10 seconds. They're going to be late into it. And on the right-hand side, the starboard side, in will come Emirates Team New Zealand. They allowed into the start box at the 2-minute period.
Push them down. Same angle.
They're going to be pretty tight behind again here, Nathan. So it's kind of a carbon copy of what we saw in that first start, maybe even a little bit closer this time. So good, strong position for the Kiwis, but look out for the dirty air, that bad air, that wing wash of Luna Rossa right now. That's one thing that they have to be very careful and mindful of.
Drive around. They will probably take if they come up, we go up. Okay, no? Good.
Looks like a lead back position by the Kiwis right now, driving to the inside, still with over a minute to go.
Okay, board's just come now. Board's coming up.
Yeah, speed and do a recheck.
So we just check this.
Yeah, he's two boarding. He's one boarding.
Looks like he's close to not getting up to this light.
Yes. Probably he cannot shine.
Looks like the Kiwis are marginally off their foils right now. They got slow in that maneuver.
Really strong position for Luna Rossa here at this point in time. Emirates Team New Zealand can get it up and going and lay the pin end. Could be an even start still.
So he's doing the line, I think.
30 seconds to the start of race 3.
2 boards down, trying to slow up.
Time and distance critical to make the start a perfect one.
Happy to charge here.
Start to push now. Positive 2
Good separation.
Only just on the pin, but all good.
Down a bit, maybe. Yeah,
Under one up here. All the way.
We are go. Race 3 of the match in the 36th America's Cup. Clean start by both. Emirates Team New Zealand, Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli.
Same thing.
He laid out and let the sailors do the commentary for us, Nathan. It was just 2 boats that were kind of in control, kind of okay with where they were, and a fairly even start. As they approach this first border in that first crossing, remember, Prada will have to give Team New Zealand the right of way when they tack to port if they get into that zone, if they get into this zone. And you'll see Prada go probably fairly soon.
3, 2, 1, port down.
1, forward. Good. Just come on.
So what we'll expect now is Luna Rossa to leeward in front. They're in a lee bow position. This is the long landing across the other boundary. If Luna Rossa can go a high mode, Team New Zealand might struggle. We saw this several times against Ineos and also against American Magic. Prada having this high, slow mode, squeezing the competitor off.
And a little better tap, Shirley. Going out to you on the water, it looked like, again, Luna Rossa was a little better on that tack. And when we're so close just a few meters makes a huge difference.
They're on a little lefty.
Kenny, we're right behind them, and you're absolutely right. Also, Luna Rossa really quickly to get up to pace. I was watching their BMG as well, you know, a knot or two higher. And look, just left New Zealand with no choice. Very, very impressive manoeuvring by the Italian team.
Slowly coming on the breeze here.
Yes, yes.
Coming on the breeze.
Paul Goodison up in the helicopter. You sailed against this Italian boat a lot. Is any of this surprising you so far?
I think, again, we're just seeing the forgiveness of the larger foils on the Italian boat. You saw it in the start. They just managed to stay on their foils a little longer. And just there out of the attack, they did a super nice job of just staying high and close and putting the lee bow on, and which inevitably led to New Zealand will probably be below their minimum tack speed. So it means they just have to accept the loss, dive down through the dirt and build enough speed to tack. So a really strong position now for the Italians.
I think at the top, not much to play. It's quite even.
Moving up on leg number 1 of 6 in this third race of the America's Cup. Early advantage, Luna Rossa.
Do you want to go on him or?
Let's see when we get there, because there's puff coming here.
He's stacking here. He's stacking.
I think pressure even. Pressure even.
Good. So there we go.
If you want to hit him, it's now.
Go one left, take the favour go.
Hold it up.
No wider coming up.
It's a good discussion of Luna Rossa. They're talking about, are they going to tack on them, or are they going to go off into the boundary and minimise attack? They decided to minimise the attack, and clearly they're confident in their boats.
No kidding, and actually that was kind of interesting, because you tack on the Kiwi boat in that spot, you shove them right back over to the short side of the racetrack. But yeah, this is confidence in your boat when you just let your guy go like that.
But this comes as no surprise, surely, with the way they operated and got better and better in the Prada Cup, and they've just moved straight into the match with that same confidence.
Yeah, but remember, they tack better. So if you tack better, we think they tack better at this stage. If you tack better on the Italian boat, why not get the other guy tacking more?
And when we talk about tacking, Nathan, you've always said, you know, you can lose distance on the tack, but maybe not so much with Luna Rossa.
Well, every boat tacking it there is losing distance, but they're just losing a little bit less than Emirates Team New Zealand. That was what we learnt on Wednesday, and I'm sure all these teams have learnt similar things, but I'm just shocked that they didn't try and shut the race down quite early there. They've now set up for a split at the top gate.
Split at the top gate, and you've let a fast boat have some breathing space. If you were the Kiwis right there, you would have had a sigh of relief. Thank you for that gift.
Exactly. Exactly.
Coming into the top gate, gate number 1 for the first time in this third match of the America's Cup, and it will be Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli carrying on from race number 2, and they will lead Emirates Team New Zealand around the mark. But have they let them off the hook?
There will be a split. They obviously did fine on that cross, but there will be a split on this run.
A 10-second lead to Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli when they head down on their first downwind leg. And we take a look at our heads-up display. Just gives you an indication of speed, the distance to the lead, and of course, the most important thing, our velocity made good, Kenny, on the right-hand side of your screen as you see it there.
Potentially a bit lighter and 10 feet. Standing by. Yeah. Positioning.
It's amazing how, Nathan, a decision like that halfway up the first beat will actually have reverberations through the whole race. You know, so all of a sudden, trying to control the race course after letting the other guy go. Again, so far, no harm, no foul. In fact, you can make a case they've done better because of it, but it's still, it changes the race.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. You've got two options. Either you tack on your competitor and try and force the extra maneuvers for them, or get in phase and keep touching the race, or you actually are confident with where you're going. Maybe they thought there was better breeze on the left, we tack on the ley line, we keep it simple, and they've stretched out a little bit. I'm curious to know how it looks from the helicopter, Goody, because you got the best view on the sky right now. Is it even out there in terms of pressure, or is the pressure better on one side or the other?
Sorry?
I think we just stay and
So
phase
it
it.
looks like it's
yeah.
really
Nice
coming
phase,
down through the channel. So what you'll see as you go from top to bottom of the course is that the middle of the course generally seems like there's more pressure. Out on the edges towards the boundary, it looks a little bit softer. I think that'll be really interesting to see if the guys decide to stretch all the way to the boundary to reduce the manoeuvres, or whether at some point they just decide they're going to drive down the middle of the course, stay in the slightly better pressure. But there's not many shifts out here at the moment, and the pressure looks quite stable apart from the difference between the middle and the edges.
It's coming as no surprise, as we've seen in recent times, that Jimmy Spittle and Francesco Bruni are taking control of a race. Let's go on board, hear the conversation.
This is good pressure. We go for the 1 and in, eh?
Yeah, I agree. Probably a little more to come.
You're not coming up on the comms for your track.
Yeah, probably a little bit more to come, I said.
Yep.
Still on a little lefty. Tanking a bit of speed.
Yeah, a little build here coming up. Stand by. 3, 2, 1.
Virtual eye giving you a grandstand view of this course E, the back paddock, out on the eastern beaches, out Maraetai way, and you can see at the top of your screen another large spectator fleet and a lead by Rossa.
Yeah, a little gain here, though, for the Kiwis, no question about it. Again, the race course became spread out, and when you're the boat ahead, it's really one of the last things you want is constant splits to either side of the course. We saw that lead just get halved on the last crossing.
Emirates Team New Zealand were steaming down, but it will still be in the deficit. They will have to make another drive to get into that gate area as Rossa, Prada, Pirelli head towards the downward gate for the first time, and they will round it, leading an Emirates Team New Zealand side that have made ground. It was 10 seconds at the top gate. What will it be at the bottom? Have they found any advantage?
Go aero, boys, when you can.
It's not going to be much, but they're still going to be behind. Emirates Team New Zealand, the defender, 1-all in this series at the moment, has a 13-second deficit. They've lost 3 seconds on the downwind leg.
All those gains they made down that middle of that course, they ended up having to do that extra jibe, that one extra maneuver, and that's probably the 3-second loss. They might have gained 3 or 4 seconds, and then the extra jibe cost them a bit. Now they've had to do the difficult maneuver of the round-up tack, and here you see Prada tacking out on the boundary. I'd expect from here, Kenny, that they're going to face tack them on the next one and start to put a bit of hurt on Emirates Team New Zealand.
Right now, you'd have to, surely, if you're looking at these boats out in the water, this is a gut feel so early on in the piece, but you'd have to say that the Kiwis look to have a little advantage maybe downwind, and Prada maybe has a little advantage upwind. Is that fair to say from your vantage point?
Oh, Kenny, it's hard to tell. I mean, as Goody said, it's quite a light wind and it's funneling through a gap. And so as you get to the edges of the course, it's softer, it's sort of coming in waves, and there's so many spectator boats. And the wind's light, you know, so it's struggling to get over all the boats. So it's hard to say, you know, the middle of the course is a lot stronger, and it's patchy at the edges.
Pressure. Here we go, middle of right now.
My rake, my trap.
Well, if you're an Italian fan and you see Jimmy Spittle and Francesco Bruni tacking right on top of Emirates Team New Zealand, you'd be breathing a little sigh of relief there. Right now, if you're a Team New Zealand fan, you're looking for Peter Burling to pull a bit of magic out and get back into this one, I'm guessing.
Well, the question that any fan that is maybe new to yachting, Nathan, is where does the magic come from and what do you do?
Well, the magic right now is trying to find a little bit of extra pressure, trying to get a little bit of leverage, a bit of separation from the competition, try and find that little bit of extra speed, and if you can just start closing the distance down, start attacking, force an error from your competitor.
Similar to what they were doing on the downwind leg, right? Splitting the course and finding some pressure.
Yeah, but the big theme here is there is still this unbelievably loud rumor of a radical boat speed advantage to the Kiwis is patently not there. It is not there. These are, at best, even boats. At worst, you'd have to give a little advantage in the lake to the Italians right now. It's really...
It is a beautiful boat.
Kenny, it's a really good point. There's lots of talk about boat speed differences, but it's also got a lot to do with the angles at which they're sailing. I think Team New Zealand probably are going through the water faster, and hopefully after the race we can get a bit of data to show the speed differences. But for me, it's the angles. It's how good Prada are at sailing a high mode. Their tack losses look less with those bigger foils, and they look like they're sailing a little bit slower on average, but the angle they're sailing to the wind is narrower. So they're ending up doing less distance. So in these lighter winds, the bigger foils are working for them right now.
Yeah, I completely agree, Nathan. It just looks like they've got more of an ability to do the modes they want. It looks like the New Zealand boat has to really get the speed up for the maneuvers. They have a higher bottom speed through the maneuvers, and it just looks like the Italians are more forgiving, easier to tack at a slightly slower boat speed. And that high mode is what really putting them in some big gains at the moment.
Going in 3, 2, 1, board down.
Lots more tacks on this bit than the first upwind, isn't there, guys?
Pushing them to the short side. The short side of the track is the bottom side of our screen right now. So they're gonna slowly but surely keep trying to put the pressure on it. Goody, we had a question this morning from on these boats. All boats have a wind shadow, a shadow coming off the bad air coming off the lead boat. What do you think the length, the distance is of wind shadows on boats going this fast? Is it different from the boats that we all sail at home, or is it about the same?
I think it's probably bigger because the pine gets into the wind shadow much faster. So you see quite a big dirty area behind the boats, and because there's such narrow apparent wind angles, that extends straight behind them, not so much down to leeward, but it's more straight behind them and a good couple of 100 meters back.
See the biometrics of the grinders and all the crew, heart rates, breaths per minute, body temperatures, just a little something special for the match we bring to you here. Wherever you are around the world in the 196 countries taking this broadcast, this is race 3 and we're about to complete the halfway point, and it's still Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, the challenger of record, will complete the third leg ahead of the defender, Emirates Team New Zealand.
Yeah.
Calm and controlled racing again from Luna Rossa as they round the mark. It was 10 seconds at the first mark, 13 seconds at the second mark. What will it be at the third?
This is a stretch, Nathan, and a good stretch, and that was one of the best legs we've ever seen this Italian boat sail, in my opinion.
Couldn't agree more.
Emirates Team New Zealand being left in the wake of Luna Rossa in race 3.
Yes.
They will round the mark. 27 seconds behind the challenger.
Wow. Wow. Who saw this coming?
Nobody. Nobody in New Zealand saw this coming.
That's fair. Everybody in Italy saw this coming. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much. Virtual Eye giving you just a beautiful look at this course E. Not the favoured course, by the way, from the race committee. It was always going to be course C, the stadium course, closer to the city, so crowds could get around it and see it from vantage points.
Yeah, but course C, it's out on the back paddock and it's quite stable out there, you know. It's a race course more about boat speed. You know, if we can come into course C in the coming days, now that we're back at alert level 1, it's shiftier. There's more current, there's more local knowledge, and maybe that's what Team New Zealand need. You know, it seems like at least in this lighter breeze, they're not quite quick enough. And we get back into the shifty conditions over the weekend in course C, we could see a very different event.
No.
Body. Good. Play the phaser.
They've done a really nice job of the aero package on this boat. It started out without those little cowls along the side of the cockpits in the front of the boat. Those have all been additions during the event as we've been sailing since the middle of December, and gets these crew members out of the way. Aerodynamics is such a large part of this new this new sailing world, this new sailing style that's taken the sailing world by storm.
On board Emirates Team New Zealand.
Very quiet at the moment, isn't it? A lot of concentration.
You're just going boundary job us, next best shot.
A lot of boats out there in the water watching today. Either
it's a Friday.
I don't think a lot of judges. Does anybody work in New Zealand? Not during
Not when the
America's
America's Cup.
Not in Auckland, at least. And going to this new alert level, it'll be a holiday anyway.
Little smaller jib, isn't it, Shirley? But this boat with the slightly bigger mainsail, we think, and slightly smaller jib. This sail combination certainly looks like it's working from our vantage point.
Yeah, they just look like they have a little bit more power. It's more forgiving. And I know we've been saying that a lot about them, but, you know, throughout the maneuvers, upwind and downwind, they've no concerns. It's actually quite light at the bottom of the course. It's, you know, 8, 9 knots, but they always seem really powered up. And I think the Kiwis less so, you know, bigger angles coming out of maneuvers, and you know, it's much harder. I think you're right. I've been watching the numbers as we've come down this run, Kenny, and the Kiwis have a bit more. They have a bit more depth for sure.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli complete the 4th leg. They're on their penultimate leg now, heading on the upwind. It was 27 seconds at the top. What will it be here? Well, as we sort of suspect, a little bit more downwind speed from Emirates Team New Zealand, but it's still 22 seconds and there's a long way to go.
With a last-minute jibe too. That's a that was a nice little gain by the Kiwis. On you know, don't ever count these guys out. Luna Rossa, toward the end of a race, very quickly gets back in line. So yeah, interesting, fascinating actually.
I keep coming back to the press conference after day number 1, and he was very relaxed, Peter Burling, but he did say, if you'd given us just a little bit, another half a leg, we've got to run him down in that second race. But it's nonsensical, because you've got to be on them. You can't be that far away and then say, I need another half a leg. This is the America's Cup match, for goodness sake.
You better start running fast right now, boy, because this is not an easy. This is a big mistake by the boat in front zone right now, isn't it, Nathan? You're not chasing down from what we've seen so far with pure boat speed from a 300 meter deficit.
No, it's looking. Put it this way: these conditions are probably the easiest conditions to sail these boats. You know, Goodison sailed these boats a lot. How difficult is it right now to be making crew errors? These guys are really well practiced. It's got to be some of the easiest conditions to race the boats in, so we're not going to see a mistake.
These guys are at the top of their game. You can see so far everything's been really crisp, really nice. I see the Kiwis are just managing to exit their jibes a little lower than the Italian Cup speed at a lower angle, and that to me seems where the gains are. But unless there's a big crew handling error, then it's going to be really difficult to drag this down. The Italians just keeping it tight, and I think they don't make any mistakes, and it's another win on the board for the Prada team.
Let's just talk quickly what Paul Goodison was saying, Kenny. You know, exiting things a bit lower, and is that giving them an advantage?
Oh yeah. For the Kiwis downwind, that's an advantage, no question about it. But I would go the counter to that. I think the Italians are exiting more effectively upwind. So we're seeing differences between the boats. Listen, the boats are different. The foil packages are different. The sail packages are different. The hull shapes are different. There has to be differences between the boats. One appears just a little more efficient downwind, and the other appears a little more efficient upwind so far. And Nathan, if I had a choice between a boat that's better upwind or downwind, I take the upwind boat every day of the week.
Well, you spend more time going upwind, don't you? It's, you know, you're sailing a slower speed. You're generally doing wider angles. You know, I'm sure we could find the percentages of upwind to downwind, but if you're quicker upwind, you can take control of the race from the start. You spend more time going upwind, you can hurt the guy behind you, and then when you're going downwind, you instantly accelerate and you get further ahead when you go around those top marks. So most boats you ever race, it's always about upwind performance.
The penultimate leg of the third race in the match. Leg 5 of 6. And it's a strong lead to Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. The scorecard at the moment is 1-1. Are we simply seeing, again, control from Luna Rossa?
Oh, yeah. Well, boat ahead controls. You got your choice between wind shifts and kind of tactics on the water versus controlling your opponent and keeping them to one side of the race course. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another tack here right on top of them and make sure that they just have split the course in half. Force your opponent to always go to the short side of the race course, and hey, it's much harder to pass. Got pretty slow on that tack, though, didn't they, Nathan?
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest attacks. Looks like they're maybe not completely affecting them. Goody, what can you see from above? What happened in that tack, and are they on their breeze there?
Oh, it looked like a slower turn. Whether there was some sort of ventilation on the board is quite hard from up here. But I think the Kiwi boat has clear hair right now, so they might not have to spend an extra tack to get to the windward market at the same time, because it just looks each upwind, they're just forcing the manoeuvre from the Kiwi boat. And every extra manoeuvre in this sort of wind is a 50, 60. So I think that's what they're managing really nicely at the moment.
Yeah, Goody, we can see that the shots we're looking at right now, it just looks like Luna Rossa are pointing significantly higher. Like, look at this shot from the helicopter behind. One boat sailing almost 5 degrees higher than the other. And, you know, we've been watching Emirates Team New Zealand around. They haven't made any mistakes. The crew work on board looks slick. You know, the maneuvers are good, but to me, it just doesn't look like their boat's motored correctly for this lighter wind.
Dare we say it looks a slow boat?
I wouldn't call it a slow boat. Surely I wouldn't call this a slow boat, would you? It's just another boat's being sailed a little better right now.
Yeah, and we're seeing slightly different conditions today. We're learning, Kenny, every day.
Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli heading towards the 5th gate and the homeward run in race number 3 of the match. And they pretty much haven't put a foot wrong. Strong, confident, and smooth.
Okay, all yours.
1 leg to go for the challenger of record. 22 seconds it was at the end of leg number 4. What will it be at the leg number 5?
Every upwind leg, this is becoming a bit of a trend.
Nice pressure at the mark. Nice angle there.
Emirates Team New Zealand now finally getting to the gate.
5.
The margin has
2, 1 leg.
strung out just a little bit more in favour of Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli at 38 seconds.
It feels like reasonable pressure here at the moment. Yeah, I think we've got to go boundary here. Yeah.
Surely any passing lanes out there? I mean, it just from our vantage point here, it just looks smooth and steady across the whole course. Anything big that could give these Kiwis hope?
It's just as you see it. It's really steady in the middle of the course, and wow, it's an impressive lead. If you're a Kiwi, what are you thinking now? There's 3 days of these kind of conditions forecast. This is a big race.
Quite simply, if you're a Kiwi, the odds are being defied. All the so-called chatter is not worth the paper it's written on.
You've been in the media your whole life. At least Nathan and I are new to the media, so we're new to this guessing game. I mean, you media guys have created this.
Stop pointing the finger. The one thing we've got to remind ourselves, that boat that you were looking at right now is being sailed to perfection. It was in race number 2 and race number 3. They pretty much haven't put a foot wrong. And look at that lead for Luna Rossa. They're doing a job on the defender.
off there, boys.
This is all about development. And if you remember back to December, these guys were quite a bit off the pace. But remember, they didn't have their final set of foils on. They've done a lot of aerodynamic changes to this boat. I bet you they've changed the rudder. They've changed the way they sail the boat. New sets of sails. Max Serena said it's all about upgrades.
But, you know, when we go back to the Prada Cup and they all released their boats, the one boat that hardly changed physically to the eye was Luna Rossa. Everybody else, their second boat came out, they were dramatically different. This boat you're looking at right now, you had to look close to find the changes.
They liked their first boat. Their first boat had some structural issues, or they said they could have sailed their first boat, but it did. They built it light. They built it light on purpose. Sure enough, the thing was busting apart half the time. They built almost the same boat this time around, but like Nathan said, it's all those bits and pieces that make the big difference, and we're seeing this come to fruition.
3, 2, 1, turning.
Nice race, guys. Yeah, you said that.
Sport is all about moments, pivotal moments. And I wonder right now whether you are, or whether you're watching around the world, wherever you are, we might be seeing a pivotal moment in the America's Cup match on the Hauraki Gulf. Because Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli has just won another race. They go ahead 2-1 in the match against the defender, and you can bet those fans of Luna Rossa are pretty happy about that. That was a statement race.
Got to do it again. Regroup, start all over again.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, in the background, in come the defender. And it must be so disheartening knowing he just can't get him right now.
One race it could be an aberration. Let's do it 2 in a row, and then we're on to something.
Emirates Team New Zealand crossed the line to complete race 3, but they don't get the point. 37 seconds adrift. They picked up one measly second on the downwind leg, and they now are behind in the match. Scorecard stands: Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli 2, Emirates Team New Zealand 1, and there's another race to come. It's worth a wow, because that performance by Luna Rossa was strong, and it was a building performance.
The sailing world, I wouldn't say is stunned, because none of this should stun us anymore, but a lot of mouths are open, let's put it that way.
Confirmation, race number 3. It goes to Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli by 37 seconds. They lead the match, 2-1.
This is the race committee. We are setting the start time of race 4 for 17:20.
race 4 of the match. Emirates Team New Zealand coming in from port. Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli, the leaders of the match, come in from starboard. And deep breaths go all around. A huge intake of breath from Emirates Team New Zealand, and probably a similar one too from Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli, because they have got confidence and they are good right now.
Well, Shirley, let's go out to you on the water. They're getting towed up right now. So is this a trend towards lighter air? Why do you think they're having to get towed up?
Well, it has dropped a little bit. We're still seeing 8 or 9 knots, so the different wind over by the airport on the other side of Auckland. So we could get a change here. But yeah, 8 to 9 knots for sure. I mean, to me, Luna Rossa just look race ready, and whatever the Kiwis have been telling us, you know, they look a bit rusty. They just don't quite have the edge when it comes to racing.
This is the race committee. The wind sampling period has been completed, and this race is live.
So a live race means we are a go, and this team, Nathan, the defender, Emirates Team New Zealand, got to find something to level this matchup.
Yeah, they do need to find something. I think that something is just getting their nose ahead at the start. As soon as you get your nose ahead at the start, you can control the other boat a little bit. We heard Francesco Bruni say once we got our nose slightly ahead, it got a little bit easier from there.
Big crowds in at the America's Cup Village on Auckland's Viaduct, wanting to see this match leveled up. You can see the fans from Emirates Team New Zealand, and of course the Luna Rossa fans as well, wanting to see them maybe take another one off the local lads. But this is the match. I gotta say it, Kenny, there is no second. I know that's what you thought I was going to say.
Yeah, we felt something coming that was going to be brilliant. So thank you.
Sorry to disappoint.
Yeah.
So it'll be Emirates Team New Zealand that will be able to come in on the port entry at 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
That was a good stat, Nathan, that the port entry has been dominant here so far. Now you got us all thinking about this. It is a different world without the reaching starts that you guys did in the last couple of America's Cups. This upwind starts have definitely thrown some different wrenches into the starting procedure.
In comes Emirates Team New Zealand, first entry for race 4 of the match. And just on their tail will be Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli in starboard.
So I think the benefit of the port entry is that they get to enter first and they get to turn back on their timing. So they basically put themselves in the box seat. And in this time round, Luna Rossa is now starboard entry. So it's always a little bit tougher for them. They jibe in the dirty air there right now. You see that they're struggling to stay on the foil. It is definitely lighter out there. And these guys definitely have to really push hard to win the start, whereas it's almost playing out as that the port tack should have the advantage, should start wherever they want to start.
Reaching down at us here a little.
They jibe here, we tack around, I think.
Quarter. He lands the jump. Can't make it. I don't know if he's jumping. Okay, he's not jumping. Going down or up? Where is it? Holding here. Coming hard up, please. Coming hard up now.
2, 1, lower down.
Going straight. Josh, you got this board?
Kind of setting up in similar positions to the last start right now. Both of them with similar size jibs and similar size sail packages right now. But the Kiwis are dangerously close to being off their foils, but they seem to be able to pop up pretty easily from this spot.
Not too low, I think. Okay, good. You can see them, I think. Can you see them?
It's not foiling. They could be coming in here for a hook. They're going on the attack here. Jimmy Spittle on the attack.
You better be sure you can attack from here if you're going to get yourself down in this spot.
Yeah.
The speed.
Yes.
Can't make down one board.
Nice on the line.
New Zealand pretty early once again.
Maybe you can go above, come in. Yeah, it's okay, it's okay. You can come down here.
Going to reach down the line.
Try and get a good charge in.
Charging. No lower, no lower.
He's happy about that.
Start race 4 of the America's Cup match. Nervous start for Emirates Team New Zealand, but they are away.
But much tighter. This is very different from the last start. Prada started much closer to the hip of the Kiwis. The Kiwis should be able to fend them off this time around.
Put down. Good pressure
there you
actually.
go, Luna Rossa attacking straight away. Peter Burling said he was happy with his first start, but they gave too much gap. Tight to leeward is strong and wide and right is strong, and this time Emirates Team New Zealand win the starting battle.
Okay, my drag.
Yeah, good angle.
Here comes a drag race right now. We're about to find out, Shirley, which boat is quicker on these next two tacks with them splitting apart. How about wind shift-wise? What do we see out on the water?
Yeah. 3, 2, 1. Put down.
Well, Kenny, it's definitely up and down a little bit more than we saw before, and on the other coast of Auckland, the wind's in the other direction, so potentially something could happen. It's definitely way more unstable. Lighter patches down to 6-7 knots now.
Goody on that first tack. The Kiwis looked a bit vulnerable again. Could you see anything from the air of their positioning and kind of their direction coming out of that first tack?
I think they did a really nice job there, just getting on the foils when they needed to, and the big difference was in the start. They managed to get tight to leeward. And what I saw from up here is that the downspeed tack out of the lee by seemed to cost them a lot more than anything. The interesting part will be it is very unstable now. There's a big it's going to be about picking the better pressure to do your maneuvers in. I think it's going to be a tight race, this one.
Here comes the key moment, Stephen.
15 seconds away.
Starboard tack boat, Luna Rossa has right away at the top of the screen.
5 away.
Have we potentially seen our first pass? I'm not so sure.
Where's he got him there?
He's rebounding.
Copy. Still trying to trim on, guys. Jib's really wide here. 2, 1, put down.
Carrying on. Yep. Fine.
The attacking duel begins.
Who thought? Who would have thought?
Performance.
It'll be really interesting here, Nathan, to see if the Kiwi strategy is to kind of let things get spread out, even though, like Shirley said, it is much puffier out there right now. I just don't think they're comfortable maneuvering.
Yeah.
5.
You'd have to think the smaller foils pay a penalty for the tacks, and I'm sure they'll hit them if they can, they'll tack on them if they can and force the extra manoeuvre, but they're not going to come back early. They're going to stretch it out to the boundary, get the boat up to speed, and
looks like a little bit of power.
you can hear them talking about better pressure on the left right now.
It's just taking some of the chatter off these boats.
Making sure we're sailing fast. Yeah, we're good, yeah. Nice. Transitioning. 3, 2, 1. Port coming down. Good. Wider.
That looked like the cleanest tack we've seen them do yet. That was really interesting, and maybe even a higher flight ride. So
yeah, real nice.
They're always trying something. That's what it sounds like to me. That they're still trying to figure this out.
What do you reckon? Quite far inboard on the sheet. I mean, I reckon the pace up from this side. Yeah, copy. Yep, great.
Okay, no faster.
You could ask the question, is this just what Emirates Team New Zealand have needed all along? Race practice, but they just have to throw themselves out as the defender.
Well, race rust. They've said it. Peter Burling told us they have felt rusty at least yesterday. We are going to get a split on this first run, though. It looks like they're going to be taking opposite sides of the gate, and this is still a small lead.
A little bit, yeah.
Heading towards the top mark for the first time in race 4 of the match between Emirates Team New Zealand and Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. It's tight already at the top mark. Who will get around first? You're about to find out. It's mere seconds. And it will be Emirates Team New Zealand leading for the first time in 2 races. Oh, sorry, 2 races, excuse me. 2 races. And around the top mark they go for the first time. It won't be a huge gap. And they head down on leg number 2.
2, 1, all yours.
Not much at all. 9 seconds.
Not much at all, but we have a split. Goody, you're up in the sky. Is there any pressure better on one side or the other right now? Do you think one team's going to take advantage of this split?
Again, I think there's not much in it. It both looks like they both rounded in reasonable pressure. But as we get further down here, I think you'll see after this next jibe, halfway across the next intersection, it looks lighter. It just looks like it's pulsing through. Both boats in the better pressure at the moment, but it's going to get lighter as we get down to the bottom. I'm sure we'll see it close up a little.
It's definitely the closest race we've had so far of the match. 50 metres downwind. We're used to seeing more like 150 metres. So see how much a jibe loss is here. Luna Rossa just jibing now. It's going to go from 50 just over to 100. That shows you how much distance they're getting lost in manoeuvres.
Let's go on board Emirates Team New Zealand. Let's see what they're thinking. What's the chatter?
Average breeze. How much difference here, right? Lenny, you might as well carry on. Yeah, not a lot. Looks like we're sailing into the back of reasonable breeze here. Not a lot back the other way, so. And a little bit more to windward, keep it. Good mode.
So that was Glenn Ashby and Peter Burling having chat about should they jibe and go with Prada, or if they're going to go all the way to the boundary.
Potentially lighter and
it's like they're having a conversation about what kind of wine they're going to drink tonight. You know, it's just unbelievably low-key, isn't it?
It's like a board meeting. They're just having a chat and they're just looking around comfortably. We're dealing with high pressure, high-tech machinery here, and they must go through their minds with every maneuver.
Well, look, just the crowds in the water, the crowds following them, like many have said. There's 5 million people sailing that boat. You know, that's the way I think some of them feel.
Yeah, but there's 60 million sailing this boat as well, and that's Luna Rossa, Prada Cup. Let's see what they're thinking as they trail Emirates Team New Zealand in race 4 of the match.
Coming down again.
Yeah.
Okay, boys, stand by. 3, 2, 1, turning.
Jimmy Spindle's right hand goes forward as he starts turning the boat there from the right-hand side of the boat. As he hands off the wheel to Francesco Bruni, he becomes what's called the flight operator. He's the guy with his hand on a little shift, and he's actually flying the height of the boat off the water. Very unique way of setting up their systems on board Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli.
Quick look at the biometrics, heart rates, breaths per minute, body temperatures of all the crew on board at the moment. You know those grinders will have the high heart rate for sure.
Slightly phase.
About to complete the second leg of 6 in this 4th race of the match on course E, the back paddock on the Hauraki Gulf. And it will be Emirates Team New Zealand in front. Sigh of relief for Emirates Team New Zealand at this particular point, but you just know in this match, in these AC75s, it can be a one mistake race, but around they go. Emirates Team New Zealand with the lead in race number 4 and getting around gate number 2 to head up on the upwind leg for the 3rd.
Slow jibe there by Luna Rossa, almost off the foils down to 18, 19 knots. Doesn't even look like they may make this mark. If they do, it's going to be barely, probably with both boards down.
Apologies for the odd expletive coming off Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, but they are
turning up 3
suddenly under pressure. And that's a big gap, and we're not even halfway through this race.
Yeah,
it's 34 seconds. One mistake.
Nathan, I've almost seen enough to say the Kiwis are quick downwind.
Oh, without doubt, the Kiwis are quick downwind, and they're actually quick upwind. It's just the angle thing that they were struggling with that first race. But the moment they got their nose clear and they aren't being affected by the other boat, their speed looks to be just fine.
Speed.
That's probably the first error we've seen by either team in the last 2 days, that bad jibe there by Prada, and it's effectively let what was a pretty close race into now quite a large lead. And if you make a mistake like that, you're now just waiting for the other team to make the mistake.
Shirley, did you see anything strange, anything that stuck out with the Luna Rossa jibe as we were approaching that last gate?
Take the rhythm here again.
Or Goody, we'll jump up to you. Was there anything that stuck out as to where that mistake came from, that seemingly unforced error by the Italians?
Just looked a little softer at the bottom of the course as we talked about previously, and it looks like they nailed the lay line perfectly, but almost as they came up, they just hesitated to come up a little bit higher for the softer breeze out of the drive, and maybe held a little low, 1 or 2 seconds, causes the hull to touch down, the apparent to come back, everything to slow down. And I think just a small mistake just in the exit angle of the jibe kind of multiplied very fast, and it gives the Kiwis really now the driving seat, and I think it's their race to lose from here.
Paul Goodison, main sort of trimmer for American Magic up high, and Hallie One talks about it. You know, they're in the driving seat, maybe because of what you said, the unforced error. Let's take a look at this unforced error by Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli.
Coming back into that gate, they had to do one more jibe, and Paul was calling that it was possibly just lighter air. The boat heeled over quite a bit in that jibe as well. So it heeled over. It seemed like the foils might have been a little out of kilter. Nathan, what do you think?
It's a pretty late board drop here. Looks like they dropped the start of the turn, and I could almost see like Bruni kicked the button twice, like it didn't engage the first time. You can see that foil arm in the water. There is a lot of drag. Flaps probably down as hard as it can to get the thing up in the air. Let's watch it here again. You see the boat turning, still no movement on the board, turning. And it's really hard to recover from that. Now you've got to pump that. You know, the battery system on board's got to pump that foil down, and it's not canted all the way down enough. And right now, it's almost as if that could have been a, you know, we'll ask them at the press conference or after the race what happened there, but for sure that looked like either a human error, he missed kicking the button, or the electronics didn't work and the board didn't go down all the way.
Even at this stage, they are still learning to sail these boats. Even at the pointy end of the competition. Emirates Team New Zealand on leg 3 with a 350-odd metre lead on Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli.
Hey, Goody, you saw the replay there too. Any thoughts on what might have happened in that manoeuvre?
Yeah, just picking up on your point there with the late board drop. Obviously, the later you leave the board to go down, and you then have to add more flap as the board enters the water to try and support the hull out of the water. And this cat system is good, but it's not great. So when you drop the board, if you're late and you're trying to load the foil hard, you get target drop. So what I'm saying there is the board doesn't go all the way under the boat to lift the hull out of the water. It lands wide, and when it lands wide, you don't get all the lift you need, and the hull touches down, and everything spirals from there.
If anything, just keep eyes out for any left pressure.
It's good to have your insights, Goody, and it's also a good reminder of how complicated these boats are out there.
Shirley, we keep seeing that it's an obvious trend here. I'm not speaking out of school, that the boat that wins the start wins the race. If you're the boat behind right now, we've all been in the position, the mental position. Is there anything that these guys you think can switch up as to how to break this curse, how to break this mode?
Oh, it's tough, isn't it? I mean, it was interesting between the races. The brains trust on the Kiwi boat spent the entire time together, just thinking about what they could do, and for sure they would have felt the pressure. And wow, they came out and won that start. So I think you have to keep it together. It's been a long time since we've seen such an error in manoeuvring. We've kind of got used to it all just happening, you know, at 100%, but tough now for the Italians really to come back into this.
Anything can happen when you're only halfway through the race. This is race number 4 of the match in the 36th America's Cup, where Rossa, Prada, Pirelli have a 2-1 lead. But at the moment, Emirates Team New Zealand look at this point on track to level it up. It's a healthy lead as they complete the halfway stage of this race. Leg 3 of 6 done, and around the top mark they go. And as Kenny has said and pretty much confirmed, they are a quick boat downwind, and these fans want to see this match leveled up by the end of the day. Rossa, Prada, Pirelli. It was 34 seconds at the bottom mark. They made a little bit of a mistake. Bad drive has cost them dearly. Board issues, as we explained to you. And it's still 34 seconds.
Shirley, any passing lanes for these guys? What is this a start to split when you're behind mode, or can you start chewing them up a little bit through wind shifts?
We can actually hear on board, I mean, they're looking around quite a lot. We're in a period, definitely, in the breeze of transition. You know, the southwesterly sea breeze is coming, and as Goody said, it's patchier now, particularly at the bottom of the course. So maybe as we get towards the bottom, you know, more opportunities to do something. You know, if you're comfortable to do more maneuvers, then, you know, perhaps you can make gains. But tricky position. We're right beside the Kiwis now. They just look so good downwind, a little bit lower, and great pace.
Yep, my trip.
Yeah, crossing.
At least 7-8 knots of wind speed on the course right now, so not to spook the herd here at all, Nathan. We are in kind of one splashdown range. You know, this is when these maneuvers, as it gets close to 6 knots, well, 8 knots of true wind speed right now. As you get close to that 6, we have seen boats get stuck, and when they get stuck, it takes forever to get back out of the water.
Do you want to see them splash down, Kenny? Do you want us to tighten up?
I, like the rest of the sailing world, like seeing close races, right?
But you don't want to see displacement racing here.
We said early on, I've never said this about a light air sailboat race. It does get exciting when one boat splashes down. There is a bit of there's some nerves, that's for sure.
Is this where you're saying, oh, it'd be nice to see that sail they call the Wampa come out for Emirates Team New Zealand?
We know these guys have been training in really light air, especially on that last run with what has been referred to, what's been tabbed the Wamper. Hey, you never know. We might see it. I don't see it on board right now, though. I haven't seen it. I don't see it laying them on the deck.
The crazy thing is here, I don't see Nathan Howard buying into your argument.
No, I'm just ignoring the conversation. Sorry, guys. I'm just fascinated by the aerodynamic designs of that deck and how you can just see helmets of the crew. You know, they're very well hidden on that boat, and the deck shape it's really impressive. It's a feature that we haven't spoken about over the last couple of days, whereas you look at Rossa here, you see the grinder's down nice and low, but you see Francesco Bruni up nice and high down there to leeward. Head's a little bit higher, and a very different deck layout between the two boats.
Well, we have argued that point about people crossing the boat on Emirates Team New Zealand as opposed to the Twin Helmsman, and no one really crossing the boat apart from Pietro Cervello. So you can argue it both ways, could you, when it comes to micromanaging the amount of aero that you have or don't have.
Down to 22, 23 knots on that jibe for the Italians.
You can hear the guys chatting on board. The breeze is dropping a bit. That means that the maneuvers are getting harder and harder to pull off.
Just for clear, you'd be happy with the round.
Pretty nice jibe there by Emirates Team New Zealand. They're going to lay the bottom gate here. Prada still got another jibe to go.
Pretty nice angle for it. We'll round up, go for a little bit.
Big lead in race 4 of the match in the America's Cup out on the Hauraki Gulf. And it's the defender Emirates Team New Zealand who need this win to level the match up. And they will go into gate number 4 comfortably ahead of Rossa, Prada, Pirelli. Around they go. 34 seconds at gate 2 and gate 3. What will it be at gate number 4? Have they really put the pedal to the metal?
Looks like they've done a pretty good extension down here.
Yeah, with one jibe to go. This is where the Italian boat had their struggles last time around. Looks like they pulled that one off pretty well.
Luna, Rossa, Prada, Pirelli now approaching the end of leg number 4, and the lead somewhat has blown out in favour of Emirates Team New Zealand. Board issues on that third leg have really cost them, and it's a 48-second gap now to the lead.
And the Kiwis are stretching, and remember, I don't think we've seen this boat lose a light air race in a long time. Even when they made a couple mistakes against the Brits, they got past. They got themselves back in the race, and actually that was the last time we ever saw a pass. But this boat, notorious for being light air, for their light air speed, guess what? They may have found their match here in this race at least.
Kenny, I just keep coming back to the power of that port entry on the start and putting yourself in a strong position. And Pete Burling this time, you know, fixing what he didn't do perfectly in that first race. That tight to leeward, forcing Luna Rossa to do the early tack, allowing himself to build speed, get to the boundary, make the first cross and do that lee bow out of the first cross. It's proving that these starts are critical, and once you're in front, unless you make an error, you generally go on to win the race.
Fine. Very nice take. He's still on port at 90 to her. Long way down there. Do you see longer turn up there, you fellas? Too far back from mine. I think maybe top left. Maybe starting to minimise manoeuvres a little bit. Yeah, copy that. It feels like it's just dropping a click overall pressure.
Little Bill, guys, try getting a little slow on those tacks
The bottom speed is 17, 18 knots in that tack. You heard Jimmy Spittle saying little build before the tack. That's a sign it's getting lighter. Goody, up to you, mate. What kind of entry speed should we be having on going into these tacks, and what's an acceptable bottom speed?
That's really interesting there, just looking at the Italian boat there exiting at 17 knots. There's not many of the boats who've been able to sail out of that. That's very, very touch and go to whether you end up in the water or not. But you've seen, or I've seen over the last couple of days, that the Kiwis like to enter just a couple of knots more. I think 30 knots for those guys is probably a comfortable speed. Maybe 27, 28 is a comfortable speed for the Prada boat, but as soon as you drop down to those 25, 26, it becomes really difficult to stay airborne. A lot of flap on the exit, and almost you see the biggest losses on the exit when it's just struggling to accelerate at those larger flap angles.
Feels like better pressure in further.
The Kiwis doing well. I mean, a lot lighter wind now, Kenny, 7, 8 knots tops. Really quite different conditions, and they're doing well to keep the boat up in the air.
Yeah. So a lot of mass bend still with this Kiwi setup. In that last overhead shot, very adjustable sail plan, what people keep talking about on this boat.
Talk to me about mast bend. People are going to say, well, Kenny's talking about mast bend, but what is the advantage or disadvantage of it?
Well, the more mast bend, the more you're actually making the sails flatter. You're actually flattening the sail. You're taking away luff curve. But really more intriguing to these boats is you need to make these sails incredibly deep, lots of camber in the sails in order to get them to lift off, to give the boat power enough to get up in the air. Then once you get up in the air, your apparent wind speed changes sometimes 15, 20, 25, 30 knots, and you got to be able to very quickly and effectively flatten the sails in order to have this high-speed, low-drag shape. So this sail plan on both the boats have been phenomenal. These guys seem very adjustable, though, with I think more, they can get more mass bend, I think, than any of the other teams.
May sound like an odd question, but those sails are so stiff. They're like rock.
Well, they're like all the rest of the boat for the most part. Carbon fiber sails and carbon fiber made engineered composite sails, and they just If you don't want them to stretch, they don't stretch. Sometimes you do want them to stretch in other areas. So it's all about the engineering and the composite laminate that is put into the sails.
One up here. Down. 3, 1. Port coming down.
They look pretty slick, though, don't they, Nathan, in this light stuff? They haven't even come close to touching down yet. Even as we get down, like Shirley reported, down to 6, 7, 8 knots.
The most encouraging thing was you could almost sense the crowd were appreciating that maneuver as well. Slick and sweet, and Emirates Team New Zealand are on their way, unless something happens in this last leg, to leveling up this match at 2 races apiece. They'll head into the top gate for the last time and then head on the downwind leg. And there will be signs of relief, I can imagine, too. Because they've sailed, like Luna Rossa in the first race, they've sailed a good race. 48 seconds at the 4th mark as we look at our heads-up display. Just giving you the numbers and just take a good look at it. Understand what it's all about. True wind speed. Velocity made good. Their actual speed. And they're going to just say, see you later. And this one, out of a dirt we're going home. You just follow us in.
A couple key moments here, Nathan. That start, and then then what was a close race got pretty far apart with that one botched jibe down at the bottom, at that set gate number 2, first leeward mark.
Well, if you thought that the Luna Rossa win by 37 seconds was a statement win or a pivotal moment in this America's Cup match, maybe we need to rethink that, because the gap is such now that this is going to be a very encouraging win by Emirates Team New Zealand. 58 seconds. They've pulled another 10 seconds out of that leg, that upwind leg. And they are flying. Nothing more can be said about that one at this point.
Give these guys a bit of fresh air and away they go. And we look overhead here. I'm just interested looking inside the cockpits. Check out those camera screens there that right in front of Glen Ashby. They've got screens with data, screens with camera probably pointing at foils, probably pointing at the competition. And isn't that a great shot that we're getting there right now? And the boys up front grinding away. They'll have screens up there as well. And you can see the blue and red dots. That looks like the flight controller handles that Blair Tuke drives. That's the shots that everyone wants to know about. What's under the hood of these boats?
We all want to know about them. You got in a froth about them. And the Kiwis don't want anybody to look in those.
Yeah, we need that camera angle back again, guys. I think anyone who loves the sailing and the technical side of things, they're just fascinated with what they can't see. And, you know, we can see the foils when they come up and down, but what we can't see is those control systems and those cool things inside the boat.
But that's the intrigue of the America's Cup, and that's why you'll never get to look under the hood unless you're doing it yourself.
And it's like Formula 1 cars. You want to know what's on the steering wheel of those cars and what all those buttons do. Sailors want to know what these sailors do, because it's very different to the standard sailing.
One of those buttons on a Formula 1 car, you can talk to the pits. There you go.
What do the other 50 of them do?
You know, it's interesting, guys, with these sails too. They have no windows in the sails, and by windows I mean clear plastic along the foot of that mainsail, especially. So Burling on the weather side, on the high side, right there, driving on the high side, on the right side of the boat, he can't see anything to leeward. I'm positive one of those screens is actually looking out to leeward of the boat, to the left side of the boat, so he can actually see the competition. Yesterday in that luffing match, they responded really quickly, and there's no way he was told to luff up. I think he has his own screen that looks out to the other side of the boat.
You're right on there, Kenny. That's exactly what it is. If you look down the side deck, you can see a small camera that's just pointed to leeward, and the screens in there are just to give you a better view out that leeward side. Obviously, the benefit of no wind, sail down there, so it's just all carbon. You don't have to have anything that's a little bit more stretchy, give you a much nicer profile down low, and the cameras kind of help to get a good view of all the other guys as well.
Kenny, when they're on their own, the Kiwis, they just seem to find their groove. The boats The boat's nose down, it's heeled towards them. They just seem to extend all the time. It's really impressive just to watch them. They're doing exactly what they've been practicing, sailing fast on their own for the last 2 months.
No chase boat that they have to race against right now, Shirley.
Emirates Team New Zealand, as Shirley said, they are back in the groove, baby, and they are going to lock up this match. They will win race 4 of the 36th America's Cup, and we have got a tied ball game, as they say. Scorecard now, Emirates Team New Zealand 2, Luna Rossa 2.
Keep on back. Get forward out. Let's get a little bit away from the... Up here it comes.
And sighs of relief go around all those fans of Emirates Team New Zealand, around the country, around the world, and around the
up there anyway.
race village as we wait for Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, who raced a near flawless performance in race number 3, and they've just seen another team do that. A near flawless performance by Emirates Team New Zealand. There is nothing in this match.
It's been a long time since this boat has lost a light air race. I frankly don't remember.
It was 58 seconds.
Trav.
Stay here, Trav.
Yep, no worries.
Easy, postpone.
Well, bad luck, boys.
Yeah.
Good day, though.
So there you have it. Concession from Jimmy Spittle. Bad luck, but a good day. Why would you be? You're 1-1. There is nothing in this match. It's 2-all. It's the first to 7. Pick this one at your peril.
They're just going to go an eagle. Yep, copy. We'll go on the wavy.
Confirmation of race 4 in the 36th America's Cup match. Emirates Team New Zealand get the win and tie up the match. A win by 1 minute and 3 seconds.